Hello and welcome to another episode of Literary Gladiators, the show where we discuss and debate literature in all of its forms. If it's written work, it's game. Let's meet the panel.
Andrew.
Jesi.
Trevor.
And I'm Josh. And Trevor, you were on two panels this season, but it's great to have you back for a third.
Pleasure and privilege.
And I want to thank you for filling in for Tori this week. Tori had to take a special vacation down to Fraggle Rock. And,
well, as long as she doesn't meet any gorgs, she's alright.
okay. I think that she can handle a gorg.
Tori's pretty feisty. She can handle herself.
Yep. That and the doozers and whatnot.
And the trash heap. She'll probably come back with a load of radishes.
Okay.
I forgot, the gorgs are allergic to Fraggles. She's not.
As long as she doesn't become traveling Aunt Tori. But we're going to be going over The Haunting of Hill House by Shirley Jackson. This has been a work that was heavily in favor, in particular from the people at the other end of the panel.
That's us.
And
He's talking about us.
Jesi did a preview of The Haunting of Hill House in a previous video, and now we're discussing it. You have a discussion starter?
I do. So, I love this book. I just have to say, it's such a great book. If you haven't read it, read it. But when it comes to The Haunting of Hill House, do you guys think that it's actually ghosts, or maybe more of a psychological, something psychologically wrong with our characters?
Yeah. I guess in a weird way it depends on which version you're looking at. I mean, I've only read the book, and I've seen the 60s movie with Russ Tamblyn, but that's about it. And in the movie, it looks like there are some ghosts. But that's all I'll say about the movie.
Different.
In the book, it's a different story completely. Mm-hmm. We see no actual signs of any ghosts, and the only one who seems to get any real supernatural input is Nell herself. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, heck, with what Mrs. Doctor and her planchette say, it's almost, it's like a Ouija board. You can almost easily just get it to spell out Abernathy.
But I think that knowing Shirley Jackson, I think that it is a psychological thing.
Yeah,
I think that
my
there's
personal
definitely
opinion is that
I think Eleanor is a very enigmatic character, but the thing that I wish there was a bit more of was I think that they're trying to make it so that Eleanor is the central character, and this is somewhat her point of view, but they do that and then they abandon it.
I have to say that I think that's the only thing that I don't like about this book, is that at first it's like everybody's point of view, and then it's just hers, and then it's like, it was very kind of
But yet you don't get enough of it, because I think that there could have been more about Dr. Montague went there because of the Dr. Montague went because he was looking for ghosts, and I thought it could have been much more fascinating if they explored that. If you're going to introduce these 4 points of view, I think that there was a sense of inconsistency as far as that was concerned, and I don't think it took a huge identity crisis, because I like the fact that I liked how they introduced the characters. So I think it was an interesting way to give us a background of Eleanor's family, because she's very estranged from them. She was, her mother cared for her all her life, and then
it was the other way around. Really.
Oh,
she was caring for her ailing mother.
Her ailing mother. Okay.
Yeah.
But she didn't like her.
Yeah, and then it's hinted at she might have killed her. Because she missed a medication, and that was kind of like in that guilt of one of the phenomena that occurred. Because like she was thinking her mom was knocking on the door, and she's like, I forgot her medicine. So there was some kind of guilt in that phenomena.
I didn't catch that.
Yeah. So I mean, I was starting to think like clearly my personal opinion, it was like these were all like really psychic manifestations of her psyche, because you have to understand that she's like 31, 32 at this time, and especially in 1959 when you're unwed at that, you're like in old maid status, and you're really you're really kind of lacking in identity. And this is like her first time alone. It's kind of like she didn't have the college experience. She didn't really have any close friends. And she's finally like hanging out with Dr. Montague and Theodore. And it's kind of like a little family. And the first night she has like kind of like this existential moment where she's like, yeah, these are Eleanor's shoes. This is me. She's like staring at her shoes. And that's kind of a time when I think she starts to manifest a delusion, because none too sooner, Theo, it's like a little unclear why she did, but it was clear that Theo did like a practical joke. She wrote the chalk on the wall, and it could have been like utility, like to shock her out of her, like, get on the same page, let's get this out of our system. And also they were kind of like, at the time they were riffing on what's her name who did the dishes,
Mrs. Dudley.
Yeah, they were riffing on her and they were having a good time. It's like Miss Dudley. So out at 10:30, and like
she was very. Like, she was like she had that state of mind where everything is timed. Where
after that moment when Theo did that practical joke, it turns a little. And Theo, she subtly every so often is like, I hate you. She like does these little things against Theo. And the first real massive phenomena explosion that you see, it's like Eleanor is really thinking, it's like, well, is that pain? She thinks it might be, clearly it's like blood. Yeah. And it's like, it's an exact like expression of her anger, of her doing that joke. And you can also see with that red paint is when they first kind of got together and she's painting her nails in that red color, and you tie the paint in with that. So it's kind of like that experience soured on me, and now I'm going to be full blast, and I'm going to be projecting, because she was the reason why, the house was being pelted when she was a little kid when their father died, and you start to, because like Shirley Jackson is like so deft and like excellent with like her unreliable narrator. Like at the beginning you think, it's like really a bad thing for like Eleanor. She's like, her sister and brother-in-law treat her like crap and they don't trust her. And then like she has like, it's a real stifling environment. But then when you get towards the end, you think, well, maybe they had a reason. Like maybe she's psycho.
You mean regarding the car?
Yeah.
When it came to
like you get the feeling that they don't trust her whatsoever, and up until then she was just with her mom and she didn't have any freedom with her mother. And you get to think, well, maybe they had reasons to keep her under lock and key, because at the very end, Dr. Montague didn't want anybody taking Eleanor home. It was kind of because he's a doctor, and I was thinking he was sensing that, he sensed it was a delusion. And he wanted to break her from it.
I got that sense too.
Yeah.
That was a bit, the way that ended was a bit weird.
It was a little
because
off.
They sent her off, and then all of them ended up leaving as well.
Yeah.
Without really accomplishing anything.
Yeah, and the book kind of fizzled out, and it was.
But I think a lot of it reflects Shirley Jackson and her bipolar disorder as well. I think that there's great inclination, because it's the fact that Eleanor is an unreliable subject. You have the resources that you want to believe her, but it's a challenge when it comes to.
I think in comparison, so I'm going to bring up the other book that I read by her that I know we both really like. We Have Always Lived in the Castle. I feel like when you compare that one to this one, you can really tell that the narrator, Kat, in the other book, she's unreliable from the beginning. I felt like this one was very different, where you thought that, like, kind of what you said, you thought that, like, okay, everybody's having, like, these different experiences, but then you start to notice that they're only coming from Eleanor's point
Yeah.
of view.
Yeah.
And so you don't right away realize that she's unreliable until like the end of the book when you're like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
Hold up, let me back up a little bit here. And then when you go back and you kind of think about everything or you reread it, then you kind of realize it's like, maybe she's woohoo.
Yeah.
And this house isn't really haunted, it's just her who's troubled.
Yeah.
And I kind of like that kind of sense that she, you know, went into it and made you kind of second guess yourself because of who the narrator was. And we were talking before, it kind of like, it makes you wonder, like, what was really happening, what wasn't, what was a prank, what wasn't, what was in her head. One of my favorite parts where I, like, totally just put down the book was when they were laying in the bed and they were hearing the banging and she thought she was holding Theodora's hand, but then Theodora sat up and saw both her hands. She's like, oh my god, who's holding my hand?
Yeah.
Like, that right there, like, it
That-
stopped me, but it was like, oh my, so wait,
That
did
was
she
the
imagine
spookiest
that?
scene in
Or,
the book.
oh god, it's so scary.
Yeah, that was
But-
that was like the like
Oh.
jump scare of the
Yeah.
book.
And
It was,
you know,
yeah.
it's so bad when books do that. When
Yeah.
books have a jump scare, you're like, no.
It's got an emotional like unease too.
The whole book it makes me
Yeah.
feel uneasy.
Yeah,
Like-
yeah.
And
Yeah,
Which
these are
and,
strange
like,
people.
a lot of people like and like when like the scientist's wife and like the schoolmaster come and like there is some levity, but like it's not enough because like ultimately they're jerks. But
That's why
it
they're
breaks
rolled
up the
down in
tension
the
a little.
movie.
What's that?
That's why their role was downplayed in the movie, I think.
Oh, I never saw the movie. and-
Someone else that was a
I
jerk
was gonna
was
say, I haven't seen the movie.
Luke.
Well, yeah, but
Luke, who he knows that he's going to be
The heir.
the heir
Yeah,
to the house,
yeah.
and he also feels that he needs a woman to take care of him.
Yeah,
But
no,
yeah, it was the time too. Yeah,
It was the
yeah,
time.
yeah.
I mean, he was.
Yeah,
He didn't have much
wasn't.
dimension to him.
Yeah, he was a little flat.
I don't know. I mean, the whole book was just like, you're reading it, and I felt like the whole time you're like, just on the edge of your seat, like, suspense, like waiting for
Yeah.
something to happen, and then it doesn't.
Especially like
That's
And
what
then
I
it does,
noticed,
but then
too.
it doesn't, and then it does, and then it doesn't, and you're like, oh, it just it kills
especially
me. I
when
loved
you
it.
like what's the hold with the tower? Something's gonna happen there.
Yeah.
You know something's gonna happen there, and everything's kind of because like Eleanor didn't want anything to do with that room at all.
Mm-hmm.
She wasn't even gonna go in. But then when her her aberration of her psyche was getting like really bad, she's like, I've got to go in there, and like
It's like a
and then that was
change
pretty
of-
dire,
yeah.
and that was spooky because like it was like coming off the wall.
It's
Yeah.
such a I love it.
Mhm.
It's so good. I
Yeah,
loved it.
yeah, it's one of my favorites.
Mhm.
Do we have any final thoughts?
I love it.
It's
She's
an
so good.
interesting non-ghost story, although the
Yeah.
movie pretty much is more of a ghost story.
Yeah, movies do different things.
I was
for
gonna say, I
their
feel
own
like
sake.
everybody wants it to be a ghost story because it's called The Haunting of Hill House.
Yeah, it's more of the haunted individual.
Yeah, it really
Yeah.
it's that anticipation, but yet it doesn't. Never really takes place.
It's like they say in Macbeth.
However, like nothing in this
and I hesitate to
novel
use the
can
full
be held
quote
up in
for
court.
obvious
Like,
reasons,
Mm.
but let's just say it's sound and fury signifying nothing.
You got that, but it's also postmodern in that way. The idea of somebody reacting to something that can potentially be scary,
Hostile.
So
and hostile.
So, like, the whole group
That's
went
something
there
we
because
can do.
supposedly this house was haunted. Do you think her delusions would have happened if she didn't go there? Do you think maybe that because she went there as, like, a subject to, like, investigate a haunting, do you think the delusions would have
Yeah, it's a good
happened
point.
elsewhere?
Um,
Like, just
Yeah.
kind of out of curiosity
Yeah.
to get everybody's
like
thoughts.
something would have come out definitely, but like to what extent? You know,
Mm-hmm.
like I think an environment like enhanced the experience. I mean,
That's-
or
yeah.
instigated it rather. And,
I think it inspired her.
Yeah.
Her delusions, I feel like if she wasn't under the stress of, like, her mind wasn't already under the stress of, like, being in a haunted house,
Yeah.
it probably, like, if it would have happened, maybe it wouldn't have happened as badly or as it did, but then, I mean, it was all spooky.
Yeah.
And maybe it wouldn't have been spooky if she wasn't in a haunted house, so...
I think I agree with Andrew that she already had the build up to have that kind of reaction of any. I don't know what it would have caused it to tick, but
I think that the house definitely triggered it.
yes.
When you read the beginning close enough, it's actually kind of hopeful and optimistic. She's looking at houses, is like, oh yeah, I'm gonna polish those lines, and like, you know, she's thinking about a future husband. But then when she gets to Hillsdale starts to get a little gloomier, and like things are starting. And then when she finally gets to Hill House, she like verbatim says it's vile, you know, and that's like end of chapter
So
1.
maybe
and
the
like,
house is a little.
I like the interaction that she has at the diner with
it's good.
the young girl that doesn't want to drink
because it's flat and gloomy.
She didn't want to drink. Didn't want to finish her drink because there weren't stars at the bottom of the cup.
Oh, that was like an attachment she had. Yeah,
and she told her, "Don't."
Don't give up.
Don't give it. Because just that whole mentality of.
So like you demand that
childhood.
like cup of stars.
But how would we rate this on a 0 to 5 scale with half stars permitted, Andrew?
Well, this is it's a real personal book. It's a part of me. I can't not give it a 5.
I have to go 4.5, only because, like I said in the beginning, the only thing I didn't like about this book was how it like kind of weaved from the different perspectives a little too much for me. I wish it was all Eleanor. Or not at all. Like, you know, so
I agree with that completely.
that's the only reason why it gets a half-star deduction. I love this book, though. It's so good.
4.5 here. It just it's like just promises something and it doesn't really deliver. But as for whether or not Eleanor's delusions would have happened or not happened, I think they would have happened. They would just had to find a different way of happening. And more than likely, if she hadn't gone to Hill House, it would have been that sister of hers who triggered the delusion.
Yeah.
Just locking her in the house. Now, Eleanor, you stay in that room and pretend that you don't exist, okay? That's how it pretty much struck me.
Yeah.
I'm going 3.5 because I feel that pretty much I have a more serious issue with regard to what Jesi felt. I thought that it had the pieces. I thought that it was. I like how she set the situation up. I think that it was psychologically horrifying, but I think that she was indecisive when it came to point of view, and I think that there were holes the way that one would find in Swiss cheese as far as concluding things were concerned, because we recently went over Boy's Life last week, and that had everything. This one did not have. It had the ability to have everything, and I think if it did have everything, it would get a higher score. But it just left too much out.
I think as far as like
that was
quick
design.
October reads, I read this in like 6 hours.
I would still say it's worth checking out for a good psychological horror.
It's terse and speculative. That's what it is.
Yeah, it is more speculative. I would say more speculative too.
Yeah.
I think we should go over We Have Always Lived in the Castle next.
Yeah, that's dynamite.
Because that is so, man, it's something.
But personally, that's like toe for toe.
It's something
for me.
I would be intrigued to go over We Have Always Lived in the Castle.
You have no idea what
Because it seems
you're
from
getting
what
into.
you're saying, it's more. It seems a bit more in line.
It's something else. Definitely. That was my first Shirley Jackson read, and it was something else.
Mine was Charles, the short story.
Mine was The Lottery.
That's
Which
that's a lot of people.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Which makes me wonder, at the risk of spoiling the ending there, it makes me wonder, is the whole setting of Hill House a Lego village inside the village of The Lottery?
Bum, bum, bum.
Think about that one for a while, ladies and gentlemen.
If you're interested in checking out The Haunting of Hill House by Shirley Jackson, here is our copies.
Yeah, I have the Guillermo del Toro edition.
That's
Penguin Classics did a great series in 2013, and this was one of them.
Are those
We have-
black pages?
We have Penguin
Yeah,
Classics
and
too,
it's
but
like, it
not
looks
as
like they're
fancy
burnt.
as yours.
Yeah,
Oh, that's
because it's
so
been through
cool.
fire.
I want that
I wonder how much you're going to pay for that.
Yeah, I think
Probably
this is
an arm and a
OOP.
leg.
Yeah.
I think this is out of print.
I wonder how
However,
much Jesi
after
will
you
pay
read this
for
a
that.
couple of times, the mat gets kind of funky and it's kind of feels weird.
Can I touch it?
Yeah, by all
Yay.
means.
Alrighty then.
It's so nice.
Well, Jesi has a romantic encounter with the book.
Yeah,
I will thank everybody for tuning in to this video.
yeah, it's pretty cool.
And
If you
whoever
like
reads this book reads alone.
If you like what you see,
Oh, that's
That's
pretty
good.
funny.
be sure to like the video and comment and subscribe. We'll be happy to talk more about it in the discussion
That was
in the
good.
comments.
Yeah, that was.
Be sure to join us next time for
Nice
another
work,
episode
Trevor.
of Literary Gladiators. For now, keep
Keep reading.